A beautiful and a very patient Charmaine Marsh. She is the clinical director over at Goodity Co, senior therapist as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Charmaine.
Pleasure to be here.
And we have a very interesting topic this morning.
Yeah, I'm super intrigued by this imposter syndrome. I'm wondering if I've ever felt that way, So can you tell us, what is imposter syndrome?
So imposter syndrome, what a word, right? I didn't come up with it, but I think, well, normally imposter syndrome is some kind of manifestation of anxiety where you feel that whatever it is, you just don't feel you deserve a certain role or position, or like the decisions you make are just not good enough.
Wow.
So it could manifest like in your work and you're asked to do something and you're like, I don't think I could do a good job. I have no confidence in my decisions. I don't think that I'll be able to execute this the way it could be executed by someone who's maybe more talented or more adept than me. So this is kind of you just feel that you're not good enough in the role that you're asked to do.
Oh wow.
How common is this?
Yeah.
I think it's actually more common than we feel it is, but it can be brushed off as just like, I know, I just don't feel confident, that's it. I mean, to say it's imposter syndrome and then there's no way to test it or anything, but it is a manifestation of anxiety. So as long as you feel that, okay, I don't feel like, for example, let's say if I had imposter syndrome, then coming in here I could feel that, oh my goodness, my answers are not going to be good enough, it's not going to be useful, people are going to see that I'm faking it or I'm bluffing my way through or something like that. So that could be something that would come out if I had imposter syndrome, basically.
So you're saying that it's actually really common because even for that fleeting moment, you're having that thought, it's already considered imposter syndrome, or is there a certain degree of severity that is required, the amount of anxiety to it, before we can say, okay, that's imposter syndrome?
I think that's a good question. I don't feel like there's any way to exactly measure it,
quantify it.
Quantify it, yeah. But I think, as long as it's a constant thing, if you have it once or twice, and I'll touch a bit on that later, but if you have it once or twice, you could maybe brush it off as nerves, like you're coming in.
Yeah,
it's nerves.
Sure.
But if it's a constant thing, like almost every time you go into work, you feel this way, or every big project or presentation or whatever your work entails, and you just feel, I'm a fraud, I'm a fake, people are going to see through me, then it's going to be quite debilitating.
So why is this happening? Is it because, you don't feel like you're suited for the job? Maybe, you took on, you bit off more than you could chew when you were applying for the job, or, did something happen? What are some of these conditions or circumstances?
I think, this is going to sound so old because I keep saying this every time, but it does go back to your previous experiences. Doesn't have to be childhood, but of course a lot of it does come from childhood.
Sure.
As long as you've had previous experiences that constantly reinforce that you're not good enough, or that you have to hit some kind of threshold or some kind of expectation, and you just don't feel like you've been doing it, then there is this sense of I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough that kind of builds underlying inside. And then when you go out to work, you're like, oh man, am I doing enough? Is this good enough? And when you hear praises or you hear compliments, it doesn't really sit. They're just being nice. When you get a compliment, and when you have any kind of negative feedback, or you grab onto those and like, this is it. This is exactly why I'm not worthy, because of that negative comment. So most of the time, it's experiences in the past or reinforcing experiences that tell us that we're not good enough.
I feel like I don't know if I feel like imposter syndrome at work, because I really enjoy what I do. I'm constantly learning. But I think what you just described, I felt it when I had my first child. Because parenting is a whole new ballgame. There's no school for parenting. There's no, I got a cert, I'm a good parent.
Yeah.
So I was constantly questioning myself. Yeah, I know, there's no cert. Yeah. Also no good cert. Yeah.
There should be.
Yeah. What?
There should be a parenting school, and people should come up with like degrees and PhDs.
Right. I know. Yeah. So I felt that way. So I was constantly questioning myself, always doubtful. Am I doing enough? Am I doing it right for my child? Wow, scary.
Is that a term we use with parenting as well, imposter syndrome? Or is there something else?
I mean, for what my experience, we've been using it mostly for work and things like that. But I'd say that definitely there's this anxiety that you get being a first-time parent or even a second-time parent.
Yeah, that was just called parenting.
Parenting, yeah. It's like, maybe it never goes away. But it's you feel that, oh man, this is not. I'm not making all the wrong decisions. Who put me in charge of this thing?
Is that like mom guilt?
There could be mom guilt.
Yeah.
But maybe you just don't feel adequate. And even though you've read all the books and you've got all this experience and things like that, sometimes you just feel that I'm just not cut out for this job. I'm just not cut out for this role or this task that I'm asked to do.
Because I'll
Okay.
tell you this, I read the parenting books, but my kid didn't. So he wasn't behaving according to like what was stated
They're
in
not
chapter 3.
playing balls.
I know, right?
Basically, yeah. All right, this amazing chat continues with Charmaine Marsh online. We're on Facebook as well at facebook.com/1FM91.3. Join us there. Back with more Charmaine in just a bit. Send us your questions. That was a very pum, pum, pum. But thanks so much for joining us here today, Charmaine. It's always good to see you, So yeah, this imposter syndrome, what other signs and symptoms are there when it comes to imposter syndrome?
Most of the time it comes with this dread. Like when I go in to do something, I feel like just very, very low confidence. It sounds very simple, very oversimplistic. You don't feel confident about the role you're going to do. You don't feel like you have the answers. You don't feel that your answers will be taken seriously.
I like what you said, that sense of dread, because that is something quite horrible to contend with, especially if you're going into work day by day feeling that. You kind of drag your feet and you don't look forward to going to work as a result. It's a horrible feeling and emotion to
You
deal
doubt
with.
yourself,
Yeah.
I can see how, if you don't catch it, you just spiral downwards, and it just impacts you more and more every day in a very bad way. Yikes. This is really... So how does it negatively affect us?
It could lead to, it could just reinforce your low self-worth already, because if you really feel like I have a lot of self-doubt, and then going into work with imposter syndrome, having not having addressed it, and then having more reinforcements that you're just not good enough, you hold on to negative comments, you brush off compliments or positive remarks and things like that, then it could just feed this fuel that's burning inside you that says that it's not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. And then one day, you might leave your job, and you could actually be really good at what you do, but because of this, this underlying anxiety that you're feeling, you leave the job, and then you could be doing a disservice to the entire industry that you're in, or whatever.
Or
it is.
to yourself.
And especially to yourself.
Wow.
Yeah.
So at what point should someone kind of like sit up and take notice of this, and seek help, or, get some help?
I guess if all these things that we've mentioned, if it relates to you, if you feel that when I am going in for something big, maybe it may not be a constant daily thing, but if your job requires you to kind of perform on a daily basis, like give presentations or make a sales pitch, or even being in a professional position, giving advice or some kind of top-down kind of instruction, and you feel that I'm not suited for this, or I'm gonna give wrong information, and just I'm gonna ruin someone's life at the rate I'm going, or something, being to be really dramatic, then maybe it's time to maybe I should talk to someone and figure out, is this something that is bigger, or is it just a one-off anxiety? What exactly is going on?
Well, this is really getting me thinking, sort of looking back on, my own like work experiences in time. We've got some great questions coming in from Gurmit, and Gurmit has asked, could imposter syndrome, is this perhaps the result of lack of acknowledgement of someone's work? Or perhaps in some jobs where the bosses take all the credit. Oh, that's very interesting. Also, any data are women feeling this more than men, especially with the presence of the glass ceiling? Gurmit.
Wow.
That's
The
quite
head
deep.
on that man's shoulders.
Very deep.
Deep.
Yeah.
I love this question, Gurmit.
Yeah.
Charmaine, what do you have to say to that?
Thanks, Gurmit, for putting me in a spot this
Eh,
morning.
no,
Hey, you don't have imposter syndrome. No. That's not why we're here.
Oh, these two.
But then you can say, speaking from experience,
Sorry. I'll tell you what I don't have information on, which is any data or research at the moment, unfortunately. But yeah, I think it could be quite plausible that maybe, given how females have to work quite much harder in a sense, the glass ceiling and all that, maybe that could be something that, am I a female in a male-dominated profession, and then do I have any other expectations that I have to meet? So that could be something that's underlying that could feed a possible imposter syndrome.
I just want to ask, this whole data thing is, could it also be because nobody wants to admit that I feel inadequate about my job. So it will be hard to get together data on imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's going to say, like, actually, I don't feel confident.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Then this one gonna mark, this person not comfortable.
I wish they would go and ask all the CEOs that.
Oh, CEOs who go, no, I'm good at my job. Okay, and you were saying, so he said about, is it the result of lack of acknowledgement of one's work, or is it that the bosses take all the credit?
Again, excellent question. I feel like those are things that if it's happening doing now, then it's something that could be feeding whatever you already feel on the inside. So if, let's say from young, you've already had a childhood where there was not a lot of acknowledgement, not a lot of affirmation, it's not about lack of love, it's just the parents, what can they give at that point in time? And if they're unable to give affirmation or acknowledgement because they're busy at work and all that, and they come back and they don't have time for that, then there's already this bubbling sense of my self-worth and my sense of self.
Because you don't feel like you're enough. Yeah.
I'm always trying to hit something, like what Gurmit said about glass ceiling. I'm always trying to attain something or meet someone's expectations, but I'm not sure if I'll ever get there. And you have no way of knowing my direction. Am I doing it right or not? And when you go into work and you have this kind of reinforcing behavior, no one acknowledges you.
Yeah.
You don't know if, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? But you get criticized and someone takes credit for your work and all that. I think this kind of things do feed the fact that maybe I'm just not good enough, and my decisions are not good enough. That's why no one recognizes it.
Plus, it's not uncommon for some workplaces where you hear, oh, no news is good news. But if you hear from me, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
I've heard that before, so you're kind of like chugging along, like just wondering if everything is okay. And then your boss says, no news is good news. And you're like, oh, okay, thank you,
And that reinforces our upbringing, because I think in typically Asian families, we don't have a lot of affirmation. At least when some of us, when we were brought up, we were told that if you praise a child too much, then they start to misbehave and things like that. So I think that kind of thing might be withheld in some of our families, especially maybe the older generation. So that kind of just, as time goes by, this more snowballs if you don't have that kind of input that actually what you're doing is it's okay. You're doing well. You're fine. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, which is why feedback is so important, right? Like maybe once every quarter or something like that, just to touch base with your boss and your employees. So does it affect women more than men?
Well, I wouldn't know. I mean, from my experience of my clients, I would say so far, I have a few more women that are experiencing it, but it could just be my client base. But it would be interesting to look into that, actually, to figure out if it's more effective with more women.
Because I've read some books where CEOs actually do right, fake it till you make it. And they actually don't really know what they're doing. Sometimes they apply for jobs and they get it and they actually don't really know what they're doing. And then they just act blur. And I've spoken to some male friends who have jobs like that. They say that, actually, I don't really know what I'm doing. But I just turn up and I try and understand what
Smile.
the job is. Yeah, he speaks to his subordinates and, oh, that's what you're doing. Okay, good, keep it up, kind of thing. yeah, for real. This is true story.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I'm like, how are you getting away with this? Like, do you not, go in a little bit afraid every day, not knowing what you will break?
But I think that because of our society, we do have that, men do maybe have a little bit more advantage in feeling more confident in the roles that they do as opposed to women. Okay. Again, this is just an opinion, may not be right and no data, but it's something that maybe I can observe that, a guy could go and do a job that maybe they are not particularly 100% qualified for it. And they would apply for it and go for it, whereas women may not apply for that job even to begin with. They might go for something that is around what they can do.
They're more, would you say that they're more critical of themselves and their own abilities?
I don't, maybe critical is one, I think it's a word to use, but another word, I don't know, maybe it might be I'm just being more modest with what I can do, and I would rather go for the low hanging fruit than to do something that will reinforce me not feeling good about what I'm doing. Again, not data-driven information. Yeah.
But I think that's a scenario that many would have faced. You know what I mean? They don't want to get out of their comfort zone. They kind of just are modest about their own abilities, and then they don't realize that actually they have so much more potential. And I can see how it's kind of from imposter syndrome and how it might cripple someone in their career path or career advancement.
But actually, that's a fantastic thing to bring up, because I think, we don't want to confuse imposter syndrome for a challenge in our role. So sometimes we're given a challenge in our role and we're like, oh no, I can't do it because of the imposter syndrome that I'm facing and everything. But it could be the exact opportunity you need to, push yourself forward in your career or whatever role you're performing in. So,
okay. Sorry, we're just going to jump back on air and just recap some of those very salient points that you brought up, okay? Hang tight, everybody.
Never do that when you are driving.
Not recommended. No,
We
no.
close our eyes by Go West here on the Brightside. Good morning. Joining us in the studio on this wonderful Monday, we have Charmaine Marsh, the senior therapist over at Goodity Co. Goodity Co. Goodity Co.
Still can't do
That
that.
Still
should
can't
be
do it,
our
still
morning
can't do it.
warm up, before we turn on the mic. Goodity.co. So, we're talking about imposter syndrome this morning. Can you quickly recap what that is for us again?
So, imposter syndrome is a manifestation of anxiety where you feel that you're just not qualified or good enough to do any role or job that you're in. You feel that your answers are not good enough, or whatever you present is just not enough for the role that you're performing.
Yeah, so we talked about how this could be something that stems from our childhood, actually, and off air we were responding to Gurmit's question about whether
Yes.
or not, this is a result of different bosses or
not getting acknowledgement for your hard work.
Yeah.
And of course, we really, the thought-provoking element to his question about is there any data where women might feel this more than men because of the glass ceiling? Gurmit. Wow.
Yeah.
Good job, Gamit.
She's very affirming.
No, better put it out there today, especially.
Yeah. So what are some practical tips that we can employ to actually handle
it, right?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to bring up that on our Facebook Live, Joanna actually says it's a good topic and she feels like she can identify with this syndrome. So like you wanting to ask about how we can cope with it might be helpful to Joanna as well.
So how do we combat the imposter syndrome? It's basically managing the sense of anxiety that we get, because you also brought out, the sense of dread that we have going into work sometimes, and like you don't feel confident enough, doing a presentation, speaking in front of people, or just executing your job role for that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right what you said. It's about managing this anxiety when you're going into it. And it's important not to confuse this anxiety of, oh man, I'm so anxious about this one job, but, this presentation or this one speaking in front of people and things like that. So it's not to confuse that with possibly imposter syndrome. So basically, as long as you can acknowledge, sit down and think about this. What have you accomplished to date so far?
Okay.
What have you been doing with your life so far? If all these roles that you've been put in, how have you been doing them? Most of the time, if you look at it, you've been performing above average, or at least average. You've been doing okay. You've gotten by. Somebody out there saw your qualifications, saw your experience, saw what you can do, and put you in this role, believing that you could do this role. So if you hold on to that, despite all that self-talk going in, I'm not good enough, if you could hold on to the fact that someone out there saw your worth, saw your value, and put you in this position to do a certain role, and you hold on to that and you try and see, what did they see in me? What were some of the qualities they could have seen in me that put me in this position? And holding on to that could help you to get through it bit by bit. It's kind of reprogramming your brain to understand that when you're in a situation where you feel that I'm not going to be able to perform, what are some new narratives that I could give myself to reframe this fear I'm feeling going into this role. So instead of saying I'm not good enough, they're gonna see through me, I'm a fraud, I'm faking it, but they're seeing through it. How could I reframe that to say that someone saw that I could do this, someone saw that I was qualified enough to do this, and slowly but surely you would try and shift that narrative to say I'm actually okay. I'm okay. I'm not the best maybe, but I'm okay in doing what I'm doing.
Oh wow, that is really enlightening. That's really empowering as well. And I think a lot of us, we're so fixated on our mistakes. I don't think we celebrate ourselves and whatever we've achieved, along the way.
Yeah.
This is fantastic, Charmaine. Yeah. Joanna, I hope that helps you.
What a very insightful chat this morning. And, it could happen anytime. I think one thing you also mentioned was to notice the frequency of this occurring. Once or twice, it could be down to anxiety, which happens from time to time. But, if you notice this on a more regular basis, then definitely speak to someone, you said.
Yeah.
Because it does stem from our childhood, as you mentioned. Maybe there was not a lot of validation in our childhood. We had to earn the attention, etc. And so a lot of these issues that we bring up and we discuss today, a lot of that goes back to our childhood. Yeah.
Oh.
I kind of feel like, as a Gen Xer, there was no one to talk about these things. And now we're just coming into this awareness of it all.
Yeah.
So thank you for giving us this language, this vernacular with which we can discuss things like, triggers and imposter syndrome. Not necessarily a bad thing.
I think it's also going to make me more aware about, if I spot it, maybe my kids, or even like colleagues, they just, and to kind of like pull them through, give them encouragement. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. I think that's a great topic, a great thing to bring up when you see your colleagues as well.
Yeah. Where can people find you, Charmaine, and, look out for you?
You can find us on our website, www.goodity.co. I'm trying to say this slow. We're on social media, IG and TikTok, so come and look for us.
I do love the videos that you guys put up on your Instagram. They're very informative. I learned so much.
Short and sweet, but just so much info in them. Keep that up.
Sometimes raining also they make video.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Dedication.
Dedication.
Right. We'll chat to you soon, Charmaine. Thank you.
1FM 91. Good times. Greatest hits. 1FM 91.3.